Good day and welcome to everyone joining us for today's Interaction Global webinar series featuring Maggie Hepburn, Learning Experience Principal with Interaction, and Drew Samuth, Client Educator Interaction. For this webinar, we will discuss top 3 priorities to boost CRM quality while minimizing effort. My name is Lauren, Global Events Lead for Interaction, Counseling, and Juris. I will be your host for today's session. This webinar series is complimentary to our clients and is offered at 2 different times throughout the day, allowing options to participate from anywhere in the world. If you are dialing in or calling from outside the US, please click Calling from Another Country in your GoToWebinar email notification to view the US, UK, and Australia dial-in numbers. Today, we are bringing together interaction trainers to help you master the top 3 ways to boost your CRM data, quality, and integrity while minimizing effort, including maximizing passive data collection and distribution, minimizing data quality efforts, and automating as much as possible. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask them via the question pane located on your webinar control panel throughout the webinar. During the last 15 minutes of the webinar, Maggie and Drew will answer all your questions. Please note that we are recording today's event, and all attendees will receive an email with the link to the recording and slides. Also, there's a brief survey at the end of the webinar today that we ask for you to please take a moment to complete. Your feedback will help us planning our future events. At this time, I'll turn the webinar over to Drew.
Thank you very much, Lauren, and thanks again to everybody for joining us here today. You know, we've heard from a lot of you about the changes that your firms are facing and the changes that your roles are facing as a result. You know, many of us are being asked to do more with fewer resources. Sadly, some of our firms have even had to reduce personnel, leaving more responsibilities for the remaining staff. In interaction, that might mean wearing a lot of different hats: marketing, data quality, training, administration. And with all of these responsibilities being done remotely right now, which is kind of brand new for a lot of us, right? Plus, you're taking on all of these things while attempting just to keep business as normal for your clients, right? That's a big task and things can get quickly overwhelming, just like my slide here. So what I want to do is step back and cut through all that noise. I want us to take time to prioritize our efforts and strategize to our goals. And above all, we want to keep it simple. There are aspects of your work that are going to cause you stress, of course, but your CRM really shouldn't be one of them. So that's really what we're going to talk about today, achieving these things by focusing on our top 3 priorities to boost our data quality while minimizing our efforts here. We're going to explore strategies to minimize the amount of data quality work that we're doing without jeopardizing the integrity of our data, of course. How to configure interaction to show you data on the right context and just cutting out the rest. We'll also look at maximizing the passive data opportunities that exist in interaction. You know, as some of us are working with limited resources, reviewing tasks that we can eliminate from our daily routines, again, without jeopardizing integrity, it's going to be hugely beneficial for you. Finally, Maggie and I are going to spend some time discussing automation and how a thoughtful approach to automation can help make big gains in your data quality. You know, many features in interaction go unused, so we're going to highlight some of those key tools that you might want to consider in your own organizations. Throughout this session, we're going to be spending time in interaction, looking at some best practice setups that you can easily apply to your own environments. So feel free to screenshot or utilize the recording after the webinar to review anything we discuss. As always, please reach out to us, support, your client advisor on any of the topics that you see today. So to keep things moving, I'm going to go ahead and pass it over to Maggie to get us started.
Okay, thanks, Drew. So gang, hello, welcome. Thanks for making it today. As we ease into our content of those 3 priorities today, I just want you to realize that as we go through those 3 priorities, we're actually going to give you a variety of things to kind of think about and choose from. There may be some things you're not able to do, but then there's some things you can do. So we want to give you some options around ways to achieve this minimalization, if you will. So in this minimizing data quality work, keeping your life easy that way around your data quality, we want to focus on really 2 main topics here: data change management and saved searches. All right, so I'm going to start with the data change management component here. And we're going to head over into our environment now. And again, one of the great things about this webinar, since it's being recorded, is I'm not going to go into every single step we're doing, but you'll be able to go back and watch it and kind of see how we got to where we got, if you wanted to observe some of these things in your environment. So keep that recording handy when you receive it. But when it comes to data change management, I feel like I've said this a million times. I feel like I'm always preaching it, but you've really got to look at your DCM rules. If you want to make your data quality life easy, you need to make sure you're only looking at the most important things. And we do that by editing our DCM rules to reflect what's important to us. So in this case, there's actually two places you could do this. I'm going to show you both of those really quick. First of all, you'll notice here I'm in the Windows client, and I have specifically our clients folder highlighted. I'm going to edit that folder and look at the DCM settings on it. I want you to notice this change management rule set. This is primarily where a lot of your tickets are coming from. These are those, an address was added, a phone number was changed, all those tickets you get all the time. And though it's probably appropriate for us to highly manage our clients, what does that really mean? And if you've ever gone into your DCM rules here to look at the actual rule set, you'll notice we have certain rules applied to certain types of changes on different fields. And what I really want to focus on here is this word review. You'll notice review shows up a handful of times. As we scroll down, you'll see more and more of them. But when it comes to DCM rules, just a quick primer on that, you have 3 levels of rules. Your accept, which means I don't even need a ticket. Whatever they're doing here in this action is fine. Let it go on through and be in the database. Review is kind of middle of the road where it's like, well, okay, let it in, but I still want to get a ticket so I can look it over and make sure everything's okay. And then submit is stop. No, you get a ticket before it goes into the system. You have to deal with that ticket before anybody sees that value. And our best practice in theory is that a change to your system is either important enough to look at or it's not. When you start to set things to review, if you have the luxury of a large team or the time to look over those tickets, great. But remember, it's already in there. People are using it, they're seeing it, they've already received it potentially back down to their Outlook contacts. It's really, it can be a time waster. Right? You're already allowing it in. So what is it that you're looking for? What is it that you're wanting to see? Now, some people say, well, Maggie, I want to check and make sure that things are, maybe data standardized in the way that I want it to be, or, I just want to review the contact overall. And that's okay. But what I want you to remember is you have other tools in your system that you can more proactively find those things and fix them, look them over on a more scheduled basis when you have time to do it. But if you continue to get kind of slapped in the face with tickets, you're never going to get through them all. So one of the biggest ways to minimize the work you need to do around your data quality is to think about changing this up to either submit or accept. Look at the type of field, look at the type of action. Is that something, if my users do it, that I definitely need to look over or not? And then on a second level, what folder are we talking about here? We've got to think about the importance of the contacts in general, right? This is our clients folder. It's a pretty important folder. So you're probably going to have a number of submits in here, but I would guess there are certain things like an assistant name change. I don't know. I don't know if that's something we really need to look at. So I would encourage you to think about diverting these to either submit or accept and really just be focused on and minimized on the things that are most important. Now, you may be sitting there thinking, well, Maggie, you're looking at the clients folder. Are you telling me I need to go through every single folder here and right click and edit and fix those? Oh, Lord, no, not at all, not at all. The beauty of interaction, of course, is that we can do things in bulk. And this is actually how we would suggest that you approach this task. There's a DCM section in your admin tool that allows you to see all the rule sets that we were just noticing. That highly managed one was specifically the one we were looking at. There are others, though, managed, partially managed. Those are going to have maybe some review tickets in them too. But if you look at them from a rule collection perspective, first of all, back here, I can see all my contact type folders that have the highly managed rule set. So I know that I'm getting review tickets for all the contacts in those folders when changes are made. But you can edit it from here as well. Excuse me. You can edit the rule collection. So if I just go into the rule collection, I can make an in bulk change here to highly managed. So if I wanted to set that assistant name change to accept, I'm actually doing that across all the folders that are set to highly managed. So you're able to make those broader decisions around what's important and what's not important. And once you kind of get that in line, you know that every time you go into that ticket inbox, you're not thinking, oh, is there stuff in here I don't even need to look at? Right now, there probably is, but not anymore after this. So just making those quick changes right there, even to a few things, is going to help in how many tickets you're getting and how you can maximize the time you do have to spend on your ticket inbox, right? So, Drew, I'm going to have you now talk about our searches. Searches, right?
Yeah.
Is that what's...
Yep, exactly. I just want to take a couple minutes and talk about these data quality searches that we have in Interaction. There are several out-of-the-box searches that you can use for a variety of data issues: missing data, suspect data, activity data, maybe looking for archivable contacts even. One of the primary goals that we're hoping to convey today is cutting through all that noise, right? And that includes the multitude of contacts that end up in your database, but bring no value. These contacts get added a lot of different ways, right? From imports, from end users, maybe events. But we also have a lot of ways to find these people and then look at them and consider them for archiving. So why would you want to consider archiving your contacts? Well, really just to simply focus your work on the people and organizations that are providing value to your firm. Of the 200,000 people in your firm list, how many of those are really quality contacts? There's no need to waste a lot of time doing data quality work on stale records, on contacts that have not engaged with anybody in a long time. There's certainly no reason to spend marketing dollars on those contacts that are never going to engage. Interaction knows this, and we've built searches to identify those people, along with several other data quality searches for you to use. So first, let's take a look at some of those out-of-the-box searches that help us find contacts that need managed. Here in these saved searches, you're going to find these CDM searches, or contact data management searches. These are looking for missing relationships or missing information. The CDM searches are nice though, because they actually include complementary SSRS reports from the report chooser. We have PDMQ searches, or prioritized duplicate management queries, that allow you to prioritize your duplicate work on targeted contacts, maybe a client list. And then finally, we can certainly create our own searches looking for data quality issues that might be prevalent in your own database. But first, I'm going to jump back up to my favorites at the top, where I've added some of these key searches I want to focus my efforts on. I really enjoy using the favorites for data quality searches and my data quality folders, as it helps keep my attention on the items that I've designated important right now. Maybe after I address these things, I can swap these searches out for other ones. But I was talking about archiving contacts a little earlier, so let me focus on that cleanup work first with a couple of these searches. Here I've added a search for looking for contacts that aren't known by anybody at your firm. These are contacts that have no relationships with your coworkers. So what kind of value are they adding to your database? There are certainly reasons that they're going to be there for sure, but there might be more reasons that we can look at those contacts and consider them for archiving. Maybe they should be archived. I'm also looking for contacts that have no activities. Activities are being recorded all the time by lots of places in the firm. Your end users, your marketing teams, your interaction systems create activities when certain updates are made. And when a contact doesn't have a recent activity, maybe the last 18 months, 2 years, it's a reasonable thing to look at that contact and determine if it's still bringing value or if it ever brought value. As most of you know, more than finding archivable contacts, our searches find data quality issues. You might want to focus on data quality tasks that make the most impact, and then prioritize your work on those high valued contacts, or at this point, just valuable. They don't even need to be high value. Through all of this work though, our efforts should result in a reliable database. And that begins by making sure that the contacts are a good quality contact. In my view, for a contact to be of good quality, it needs a minimum of 3 things. It needs to be associated, it needs to have an email address, and it needs to not have a duplicate entry. So in my favorites, I've added these 3 other searches. I'm going to start my data quality process with my duplicate management because I actually might resolve some association issues with a simple merge, and I don't want to do that duplicative work. So here, using a PDMQ search, I can edit this search, look at the folder tab, and prioritize this duplicate management to maybe a client or a top client folder, really any high value contacts that you've identified. When duplicates are maintained, then I go for the data. I look more broadly at unassociated contacts and missing emails. By prioritizing this data quality work, we're also getting the right contacts updated first, high valued contacts, and the people that our firms are working with right now. Oh, just a side note, Maggie and I have a really easy go-to search for missing emails. We simply look for emails that are missing an @ symbol. This works every time since every email has this character. So if you don't have that search, I'd recommend you go build it. But both DCM management and search management are proactive approaches to data quality that we're responsible for, which is hopefully going to help minimize the amount of regular time that we have to put to those tasks. Maggie and I are certainly going to encourage you to look for opportunities to be proactive in your work all the time. But as we move on in this session, we also want to highlight the passive data approach for both power users and end users. So when we talk about passive collection, what we really mean is get as much from your users without really having them do anything. 2 great ways to accomplish this is through Smart Connect and Interaction IQ. So I'm going to start with Smart Connect. For those who may not know, this is a tool that helps users share contacts to the firm list based on rules that we predetermine. When contacts sync from users, those contacts either sit in a pending state, waiting for the user to do something, or firms can set up Smart Connect rules to assess and take that action on their behalf, passively and automatically. Smart Connect lets you share those contacts to the public list if they match other contacts, or even if just their company matches an interaction. So you might not have Bob Smith from Viacom in the database, but if Viacom, a client, is already there, Smart Connect rules can certainly share Bob based on that company detail and create the new person. Even if you have Smart Connect rules already running, you might still want to revisit them just to make sure that you get to maximize its data sharing potential. Because let's be honest, contact maintenance is not a top priority for many users. So the more help we can provide folks, I think the better off everybody is, right? Let me jump back over into interaction and talk about Smart Connect here. Smart Connect can do a couple different things. It can give recommendations on what type of contacts we should share, like sharing Lisa Douglas because Lisa is in the firm list. But we can also take that onus off of them and make the choice based again on those firm preferences. We can set Smart Connect rules to automatically connect contacts if they meet certain criteria, either sharing those contacts right away or maybe sharing those contacts after a preset delay, providing some time for an end user review. Deciding which contacts to automatically connect will be different for every firm, but we'd certainly expect to see rules around client and client personnel folders, your alumni folder, your firm personnel folder, really any of these folders that might strengthen your BD efforts. You see how easy it is to set up these rules, but we also have to remember to enable Smart Connect on our user contact lists. So here in the user contact list in Administrator, you'll see the Smart Connect icon with this little S here, and we can simply mark our users and enable Smart Connect with our drop-down menu options for everybody. Remember, what we're trying to do here is reduce the amount of work that our users have to do. If an attorney creates a new contact in their mobile phone or their Outlook, but the contact is already in interaction, we want to make sure that these contacts are linked, that we're not using duplicate contacts for our client correspondence. So I really want to challenge you today to think bold about these Smart Connect rules, particularly the auto connect and the auto connect after delay, because this kind of passive data collection really reduces a lot of manual work for a lot of people, staff, yourself included. So now I'm going to turn it over to Maggie, who's going to take a few minutes to talk about passive sharing through Interaction IQ.
Okay, thanks.
Thanks.
You guys, passive is the way to go. I mean, humans don't have to do anything. And that's the way I prefer it. So in this case, I want to talk to you about interaction IQ. Now, I realize a lot of some of you on the call may not have interaction IQ. Maybe you even have a different signature capture tool, but that's also passive collection, right? So the idea is, how can I get as much information about what's relevant to my firm with the least amount of effort, right? And so I'm not going to spend any deep time here on IQ configuration, but I thought this was a nice view to share with you, because I want you to realize what you're getting. If you have interaction IQ, what you're getting from it. First of all, we all know it's signature capture, right? So it's monitoring folks' exchange accounts. It's monitoring their communications, who they're communicating with. And after certain thresholds are met, it's capturing that signature and bringing it over as a contact into the system, right? But in addition, IQ, I don't know if, for those of you who have it, I don't know if you're aware, but it also does engagement scoring. I mean, if it's over there monitoring their communications anyway, it can also not just collect contacts, but it can tell us how engaged someone is right now with a contact. Have they been talking to them a lot? Think about how those values can contribute to business development, knowing who's engaged with whom, right? At a quick glance. And remember, this information is visible to you guys and to your end users, so they'll be able to see who's engaged with whom as well. So keep that in mind, that that it's not just passive contact collection, it's passive engagement collection information as well. But I do want to show you really quick here what it looks like from more of a power user side of things in the Windows client. There are some IQ folders, which again, I won't go into all of these, of course, but I want you to see what kind of information we're getting and how this actually contributes to easing your work, right? So I'll just go into the IQ contact details folder. This is a folder that contains the contacts that have come in from IQ. And what's great about these is that it stores the entire signature line. So you always have that for reference. And the best part is this information is correct. This came straight from Joseph Antonio's signature line, right? I don't need to Google this. I don't need to research this. I don't need to go to LinkedIn. And chances are, unless you got behind on it, this came in probably pretty recently. So this data is trustworthy. That's the key. And so whenever I see IQ contacts, IQ data, I don't question it. No. And here's the best part about IQ that I didn't mention earlier. It doesn't just grab Joseph Antonio and bring him over one time. It keeps an eye out for him. So as your users continue to communicate with Joseph, it'll watch the signature line and go, oh, look, there's a new job title, better bring that over. So it brings over updates to contacts just as if someone had edited it themselves in the system, right? So keep that in mind. I mean, you're getting passive scoring, engagement scoring, you're getting passive contacts, and you're getting passive updates in a tool like this. On a side note, just to get it on the recording for you, of course, we also have IQ tickets that come in. So, of course, I just told you earlier to reduce your tickets, and now IQ is going to give you tickets. I know, but these are easy tickets, right? Whenever I see something come in from IQ signature capture, my brain isn't saying, okay, hang on, let me pull up a Google window over here and a LinkedIn window over here, and let me search for this guy, right? No, I know there's a signature line on this ticket, on this contact record, that if I want to just confirm, I can. That's all I'm really doing. I'm really just checking down here to make sure this data was parsed out properly from his signature line. That's it. That's it. Double clicking on a ticket, you probably know, will show you that same information, right? So keep that in mind. Again, even if it's not interaction, if it's a different tool you use, that signature capture tool that you have access to can do a lot of work for you and passively get information into the system. And one last thing on any kind of signature capture tool, these are the people they're actually talking to. These are the people they're actually engaged with. I'm guilty of it too. I don't have, some of you on this session today, I might email with you here and there. Drew might, but I don't necessarily actually have you in my Outlook contacts. A little bit of a hypocrite that way, I guess. But the cool thing is we use IQ, so I don't have to worry about it, right? I know that IQ is grabbing your information, putting it in our system if we've hit thresholds. And so everyone is aware that you and I are engaged in some way, right? So that's the great thing about IQ and any signature capture tool is it's going to save you a heck of a lot of time and get you the right information, the most current and relevant information. Yeah. So in terms of passive data, keep those things in mind. But we can also pivot now and talk a little bit about our third point. Are we up to the third point, Drew? Automation. Yeah, I'm losing track. Automation, obviously, gang, automate as much as possible, right? Talk about no human intervention. We're going to focus on two main ways you can automate, but you'd probably be surprised. There are a lot of ways you can automate things in interaction, but we'll focus on things that you can do now, right? Review settings, contact update review settings. This is, well, we'll get into that in a second. We're also going to talk about FDA, the most underutilized and I think the most valuable tool in the interaction system, in my opinion. So I'm going to go ahead and jump into the contact update settings component of this. Now, what I love about contact update settings is that it's the flip side of what Drew spoke about earlier, the Smart Connect rules, right? So if you passively collect contacts into the firm list through Smart Connect, you can also automate the updates that go back down to your users, right? Just think to yourself for a moment, how many of you have users that never check their message center, that never apply their updates? Yikes, right? It happens to everyone, right? There sometimes people, it's just not a priority for them. They don't have time to do it. But if we, especially in this time, if we want to make sure that our users have access to the most current, most accurate information, maybe automating those updates back down is something that you want to consider, right? So I'm going to pop over into our environment and we're going to talk a little bit about that. I'm going to take you into the admin tool, and just as a reminder, because a lot of people get these sections mixed up sometimes. Remember, Drew was just in the user contact list for the Smart Connect rules, and if you recall, we can apply things to individual users, right? We can control individual users. But what I'm going to talk about is more of a global setting where we just want to say, I want to push updates out to everyone. I just want to make sure they get the updates themselves. So that's going to be down where your global settings are located in your user contact list configuration. And so when I look at the update settings in here, I want to focus in on this one particular set of option dots here under new user contact list defaults. Now, I don't know if you guys are aware of this, but kind of out of the box with interaction, this is going to be set to let the user review updates to a given contact before they're applied. And what that means is as they add contacts to the system, as they pull contacts down from your firm list, the default will be that if any updates come in for that contact, they'll pile up in the message center and they need to go through them and review them and say thank you and take them, right? But like I said, they don't always do that. They don't always stay on top of it. Hence, their data is not as up to date as the firm data. So technically what you can do here is kind of flip that around and say, you know what? I want to change that setting on their contacts to automatically keep contacts up to date. By the way, you'll notice here that will exclude anything they've marked as confidential, so that wouldn't get overridden. But by doing this, this is the most flexible option, I think, because I can go ahead and feel confident and do this and say, yes, I would like to apply this to all my users. But the flexibility comes in the fact that on the front end, any given user can go in and go, yes, I see that's the default. I see that's what the firm wants for everyone. I don't want that. So they can actually change their setting back to review their updates if they want to. And you might have users who actually are good about going through them, who want to go through them, who want to see what's coming down to them. But in this case, just to keep things kind of equalized and just to keep data moving and flowing, especially in this time, it may be something you want to consider. And it's one less thing that they have to do, right? So one big caveat, though, about this. Even though we've made that change, and now all their contacts that they enter in the future going forward will be automatically updated. All the contacts they have in their current contact list will be updated going forward. It doesn't negate the fact that their message center may still have stuff in it, pending old stuff in it. So that does still need to be cleared. I'll let you guys decide internally. You can have a discussion about that. Do we want to just have them go in and accept everything? Do we want to have them go through and not accept those things? Do we just want to have them go through and listen and say to them, listen, this is the last time you'll ever have to do this. Just process them. And then going forward, everything will be applied to you automatically. So that's an internal decision you guys will have to make. But I just want you to know that that's possible and that you can take work off their plate and make sure they're as current as they can be. All right. So that's what I wanted to tell you about that option. There's also, though, plenty of automation you can do on the other side of the house, on your side of the house, right? With marketing, business development, data quality kinds of automation. So Drew, I'm going to let you tell the folks about that.
Now, I want to say, as we get into folder dependency, how much I love this tool. When I work with firms, I really enjoy going and showing how to automate stuff, and adding and removing from folders is huge. These are things that a lot of our folks are doing manually every day, and we can automate that on a regular basis, so we can just take that off their plates. So we're talking about data quality today, so let's focus on FDA rules that can help with our data quality management. Earlier, Maggie was talking about the ticket inbox and how some firms have strategized to reduce the volume of tickets that you're processing. You know, some things like new contacts and possible duplicates, we can utilize folders instead of tickets for that stuff. And we can simply put these folders in a regular data quality schedule for ourselves and take care of that maintenance. Finding ways to, we can use that same folder concept to proactively find data quality issues and then segment them for a scheduled review, like searching for unassociated contacts or looking for missing emails. And then we can add those contacts to review folders. We also want to find ways to help our end users. So we might be looking at populating folders that we can quickly access and utilize by anybody in the firm, like a practice group list or a BD team. Maybe we've created a search against the healthcare mailing list, looking for contacts with BD activities in the last 18 months. And then we want to send these search results every night to a BD folder so that practice group can look at those BD efforts that they're doing. I think that's a really, really nice thing that we can do for our end users. Plus, setting up these movements in the folder dependency analyzer tool in admin is really quick and easy too. When we look here, I like to start looking at the source column. Where are these contacts now? In this situation here, we're looking at a search result instead of a folder. So we're taking all of these search results, but what are we doing with them? So I come over to the actions column. You know, we're either adding or removing from another folder. Which folder are we adding and removing to or from? We come over to the target entity column, and here we see that we're going to add these search results to the BD healthcare list. Remember, FDA just adds and removes contacts from folders, nothing else. And there are a lot of opportunities that you can populate folders so you can assist your end users, your BD teams, your data quality personnel. So really look for those opportunities anywhere you can. Creating a thoughtful strategy to find data on your valuable contacts and then segment them into easy access locations are not only going to help your data quality process, but it's really going to provide valuable information to all areas of your firm. So certainly consider these FDA rules and anything that can help automate moving contacts in and out of other folders. And that really brings me to the end of this priorities series for you today. I'm going to pass it back to Maggie to wrap us up with some of the key takeaways that we're trying to give you.
Great. Thanks, Drew. So, gang, here's the best news of all. Everything you just saw today, except maybe IQ, if you don't have that, but everything you saw today is available to you right now. You all have access to all of those things in core interaction, right? So I want you to think back to when Drew spoke at the beginning about cutting the noise and prioritizing and keeping it simple. You know, Drew and I were talking about, you know, if we were backed into a corner and we had to tell you the specific things that would make the most difference to you, the small specific moves you could make to do these things, this is what we encourage you to take away. Number one, cutting the noise. Get in your DCM settings. Consider those review tickets. Something's either important enough to look at or it's not, right? I call that stopping the bleeding, right? When you change your DCM rules, stop that bleeding and just get stuff that's important. Then you know when you're doing that work, you're doing important work, right? And as Drew mentioned, archiving contacts. You know, I worked with a client not too long ago. They had I'm not exaggerating. They had 1.4 million contacts in their database. We went through, ran some searches, people who weren't known by anyone, people who hadn't been engaged. We were able to archive away half of them. We got them down to 700,000 contacts safely. I'm pretty sure they actually archived some more after that, but it was just crazy. So the data quality work they were trying to do against a pool of 1.4 million versus 700,000, of course it felt overwhelming, right, at first. But if you just do that step, then what you're working with is more relevant and easier to manage, right? Don't forget though, you've got to prioritize. I mean, high value contacts. We've talked about high value contacts a number of times here today, right? So whether it's when you're focusing on data quality and changing those DCM settings, doing data quality work, it should be against your high value contacts, right? Whether you are setting up folder dependencies, those should be tending to and taking care of folders that contain high value contacts, right? Or even if it's the passive option of Smart Connect, those Smart Connect rules should be set up for your high value contacts to make sure they're getting in the system. And then more specifically on the folder dependency rules, right? Make sure you're thinking about using them to really just put contacts where they belong and remove them from where they don't belong. Having a well-segmented system is so important. Remember, your users are out there relying on that client folder. They're relying on that target folder. The BD healthcare folks are relying on that BD healthcare folder. You can set up rules where you don't have to do this every day. The system will do it for you, okay? So think about FDA rules and how important that segmentation is in your folders. And finally, keep it simple, right? Keep it simple, especially for your users. Anything you do to set up for them is going to make your life easier too. So again, think about that Smart Connect situation, right? Just automate. They don't even have to go in and share anymore. We will pull over what's important. Now, ideally, they go in and look at the rest and maybe share some things. But for now, let's just get the important stuff in, right? And then the flip side of that, the contact update settings that we just looked at, making sure those updates get back down to them so they have current, robust information on their version of the contact record as well. Maybe think about pushing that stuff out. And of course, I have to mention IQ, the ultimate in passive data collection or whatever signature capture tool you're using. I mean, that's key because it's just kind of like a fly on the wall, observing, right, what your users are doing, who they're communicating with, how often they're communicating. That's giving you engagement scoring as well as contacts and updates. So ultimate in passive, okay? So what I want to do is I want to put out a call to action. Let's do that. Let's say over the next week, I'll give you a week and 2 days. We'll give you to the end of next week. But I encourage you to go back with this presentation, find just a couple things, maybe 2 or 3 things that you can do one time only. Many of these things we're talking about are one time only setup, right? Go in, do those things, and then you'll start to see over time how things are going to improve, right? So that's what we encourage you to do, is just find a couple things, a couple changes you can make confidently, and let it roll from there. I think you'll find you'll improve your situation, especially your emotional and mental situation, your stress situation. Oh yeah, I do have to also give a shameless plug. A lot of people say, you know, we talk to a lot of clients about these kinds of things and they're like, oh, can you help us do it? Of course we can. We do actually have a data quality workshop where we work with you and end up going over a lot of these things. But the beautiful part is we do it in your environment with you. We usually chunk it out into small time frames and we meet back with you. You get homework, you get to do that homework in between the times we talk. But we work with you to identify your problem areas and get those solved, right? And move you forward. But most importantly, to get you confident in handling it to moving forward, right? We're not going to come in and just clean up your stuff and leave. You're going to do it, and you're going to learn to be confident in doing it going forward, right? So keep that in mind. We do have that data quality workshop. Oh, and it's 30% off right now if you purchase and take it before the end of June. So just keep that in mind if you're interested. Oh, and I was just told the other day too, our training classes right now are 15% off, all of them. So if you just go to, oh, there's the address on our slide there. If you go to LexisNexis University, when you purchase those classes, it'll just take the percentage right off for you. So just a thought, this might be a good time to get people trained up as well if they have a little bit of downtime here and there. So thank you guys so much for attending today. I hope it was helpful. I hope it gave you some perspective on, you know what, there are a few little things I can do, and you know those will make a big difference, right? So Lauren, I'll turn it back over to you if we have any questions.
Thank you, Maggie and Drew, for the great and informative session. This concludes the presentation portion of our webinar. As a reminder, if you have any questions, please feel free to ask them via the questions pane located on your webinar control panel. Before we return to your questions, I'd like to take a minute to encourage you to view Interaction's upcoming virtual events and content resources. Links to view these will be included in the follow-up email, as well as today's recording. We had a very interesting, relevant topic today, and there are some great questions that are coming in. Let's see. Looks like our first question is, does LexisNexis offer any accredited training courses or qualifications?
Oh, that's a good question. We don't offer CLE credits, if that's what the question maybe was asking, because it is a product focused training that we typically do. But we do offer interaction certification. So if you're an administrator or want to be, if you are a marketing professional, data quality professional, we offer the administrator certification as well as the Windows client certification. So yeah, and they're very reasonably priced in my opinion. So if you're ever interested, you can go to LexisNexis University, that same site down there, and you'll be able to kind of filter down to the certification options. Yeah.
Okay, great. And looks like another one just came in. They're asking for tips on managing GDPR compliance since we can't search on EU as a region in Interaction.
Yeah. So I think country is your best bet. And you may have noticed there's actually an out-of-the-box search, I think, that looks for empty countries. Or you can just build it yourself. It's pretty straightforward to build. Just find me all contacts that don't have a country value. And I think that would be a good first step to get those countries in there. And also make sure there are correct companies. If you're a firm that works across the globe, unfortunately, you have to default your interaction system to one country and make sure all your users know you can't just leave you can't just leave the US in there all the time. If you're putting in a London contact, you have to change that to the UK, right? So I would say start with first, data-wise, making sure that you have your countries in there as a good starting point. And then second, from a marketing standpoint, make sure you have some folders in place in terms of any rules or regulations around GDPR that your firm has interpreted. So based on opt-outs, based on opt-ins, figure out how your firm is interpreting that law, create the appropriate folders to store the contacts that are eligible to be mailed to or not eligible to be mailed to. That's good for CASL and CCPA as well, right? But we can take it one step further, and I'll tell you something we didn't talk about today. I didn't want to get too much into things that people might not have, but if you have DataMinder installed, Interaction DataMinder, you'll notice there's a contact control feature in there. And that contact control feature is specifically for something called suppression. It suppresses your contacts in the system. I'm a terrible storyteller, but let me see if I can summarize it real quick. So in essence, what you're doing, if someone says, forget me, right? That's the big part of GDPR, where someone can come in and say, take me out of all your systems, and we somehow have to oblige. Now, again, I can't interpret this law for you, only your firm can, and decide how you want to handle that situation. But in an extreme situation like that, The suppression tool allows you to identify the contact and have it suppressed in our system. And what that means is the data is encoded. I might be getting that word wrong, but it's jumbled, it's weird, it's funky, it doesn't make any sense to human eyes. And it's stored in a table in interaction, but never will a human set of eyes ever be able to see that email address or name again, ever. But the system can. And going forward, if one of your professionals comes along and they're like, oh, I don't see Bob in the system, I'm going to add him, right? If Bob had been suppressed, the system will actually stop and say, nope, sorry, you can't add him. He's been suppressed. So the system can help you control, re-entry accidentally of those contacts. So it's really weird because normally with something like Castle, we can just still store them in there as an opt-out, right? The problem with GDPR is if it's the extreme version, how do you remember that you're not supposed to remember them if they're not in there somehow, right? So suppression in your data miner tool is a nice way to use that. So sorry, that was a long answer.
Great, thank you, Maggie. Another question we just had come in. Can we use the FTA rule to archive unengaged contacts?
Can we use an FDA rule to unarchive?
To archive unengaged contacts.
Ah, yeah, no. I see where you're going because you're thinking, oh, FDA, Drew said it, moves contacts to folders, right? I can move them I can add them to the archive folder, but archiving is technically unsourcing them from the firm list and resourcing them in the archive folder. We're not just linking them into the archive folder. We want them out of the mix of the firm list. So we're not doing data quality on them. So we're not mailing to them. So we're not doing all these different things, right? So unfortunately, no. But I mean, you could use FDA rules to at least identify them. So if you want to set up a big search that combines a lot of criteria and say, if they meet all this criteria, they're out of here, right? They're archivable. Then what you can do is kind of isolate them, maybe FDA them into a folder for maybe a little further review, right? But then once you make your decision on what you want to archive, you can go back to the search and maybe archive from there. Yeah, I wish. That'd be cool. That's a good enhancement request, actually.
Good question.
Let's write that down, Drew.
Okay, great. So that concludes today's webinar, and I'd like to thank Maggie and Drew once again for their excellent presentation, and to all of our attendees for taking time out of your busy day to join us. To learn more about relevant interaction information, we encourage you to join the Interaction CRM LinkedIn group by typing Interaction CRM in the LinkedIn search bar. In closing, there's a brief survey at the end of our webinar today that we ask you to please take a moment to complete. Your feedback will help us in planning our future webinars. Thank you all for your time today, and I hope everyone has a great day.